All right, Eric Wheeler with Taking Action TV, and I have one of my favorite fellow introverts, Jay Ma, here with me, and we're going to talk about getting out there and broadcasting as an introvert. I think that is so cool. It's taking action, even though you don't feel like it sometimes. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about the first time that or give me a little bit of background about you, and then tell me about the first time you got online and put yourself out there.
Mhm. So I am I'm a big introvert that is by discovery because I didn't really realize that it took some self-awareness. Now I work with people who have some sort of similar past to me, being feeling like they've at some point in their life felt unseen or unheard. Having a voice that they know that there's the message that they want to share inside, but just have been, for me, I've been a very shy introvert, the type who in high school would cry like to make a presentation in front of class. I would run out the door like in tears. And so somehow I landed across this online journey because I at one point decided, as I'm also been a teacher and a mom, so at one point I decided that I needed to grow myself more so that I can also continue to impact and inspire more lives out there. And the only way to do that is by doing it for ourselves, to model that. Like if we're trying to encourage someone to take action and to get out of our comfort zone and we're not doing it, that doesn't say too much. So I went online about a little more than 2 years, maybe 2.5 years ago. I said yes to direct selling to this direct selling space, and that because of that journey, I'm so grateful for it because it helped me to gain some like sales and marketing skills. It helped me to gain some connection skills to be able to connect with people. I had maybe like less than 5 friends most of my life. Like I'm very picky with friends, and I would hang out with just those like small groups of friends. I had one best friend all my life, like for 30 years. And for me to approach someone to like even say hi, it was a really tough struggle for me. They had to come to me. Like I'm the type in the corner because I came here later on. I was like a refugee, so learning English is my third language, and so I was at recess time that girl that would just sit by the tetherball courts and just read books and be so quiet. And so being online, it helped me to develop those skills to be able to connect with people globally, like to communicate and to be able to say yes to many different opportunities, like writing a book, co-authoring an international best-selling book with amongst like 100 people, working on my second one, doing speaking, been on a podcast show with international. It's a international global ranked show, and just being able to help other people out there because I think that somehow like just by showing up, people also came to reach out to me and said, I'm an introvert too. Like, how did you do it? How can
Mhm.
I how can I come out, and how can I like just broadcast, or how can I just get say yes, or I and so I really enjoyed that part of the journey, being able to like be that possible reason that someone said yes to something that can impact their life.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I remember you reaching out to me when you were doing your um, it was a fundraiser for it was a talent show you were doing over the New Year's, and that's where I kind of got to know you a little bit better, and I'm so grateful that I was just like, yeah, I'll help you out with it, and we could get everything set up for that. But you know, a lot of people think that maybe I'm more of an extrovert or whatever. Um, but really, back when I first sobered up about 22 years ago, I started writing poetry. And I remember the very first time I went to a poetry reading at a coffee shop, and I was like, and I got up there and I'm standing at the mic, and I'm looking at all these people and I'm reading my poem and my hands are shaking and, but I did it again and I did it again and I did it again. And, next thing you know, and this is something that I've come to know about people who are so-called introverts. If you get them talking about something that they're passionate about, you really can't tell the difference. And I have a lot of things that I'm passionate about, and one is bringing people together. Two is uncovering and developing that story that everyone has that would be of interest to everyone, if they knew about you. So talk a little bit about you taking action on writing that first book. What was that like?
So because of being online, like I come across people like you who are on a mission to like inspire, impact other lives. And I feel that like when I needed that help because I didn't know how to do all that tech stuff, the funnel building and all, like it's just having people in my life like that you
Mm,
feel comfortable with, you just trust. And so when the opportunity presents itself, you don't even know how to do it. You're like for me, I'm a math major, so
mhm,
math and education. So I just like tried to shy away from writing all my life because also I felt like English is like my third language. I'm not that I bet all my life is like I just barely get by, with English. And so I just said, I'm not really a fan of writing, but that's the only way to grow. So here's the opportunity. Just say yes. And it was actually not too bad. It was easy for me. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't like very easy. It took some time and some effort, but just went ahead and submitted it. There was an editor. It was a co-author book with a lot of different people and a lot of actually bigger influencers and entrepreneurs who have experience. And I wrote, like you said, write about like your own life experience, and it just comes from the heart. You just like you don't have to be an expert at everything. You just write what you know and you share your own experience. So the chapter that I shared was on parenting and for kids. And so I shared 3 tips, and that was what I have done with my own son since he was a baby. And that is the connection piece. One of the things that I like somehow, because I just felt it when as a new mom, like one of the kind of like rituals that I do with my son is that I have my 3 things, 3 requests, and that is to say, I love you every day to each other, give each other hugs every day, and now a kiss, a kiss.
mhm.
So a hug, I love you, and a kiss every single day. And that's like no matter what it is, no matter like, agreements, disagreements, whatever it is, don't go to bed like without doing that before we go to bed. So we have sweet dreams. Sweet
Nice.
dreams.
That's some solid advice, because especially with kind of what's going on in the world right now, you just don't know if it's the next time you're gonna see someone.
Yeah, yeah.
My mother's had a little challenges with her health, and I'll be going over there shortly after this to make sure she's not alone by herself, and that if she needs anything, I can help her out. But you just don't know how long you get.
Yeah,
None of us are getting out alive.
it's
But while we're here, we can make a difference. And
yeah.
and and it really does come, just taking action. I remember times in my life where I said yes, and then after the person or the left and I was by myself, I was like, did I just say yes? Really? I don't even know how to do that. But then I would get on, and start learning and figuring out how am I going to actually fulfill what I said yes to. So
Yep, yep. And that's the one thing that I learned with like the whole network marketing space and training is personal development every day. And
mhm,
because we also learn rejection, rejection. Like there's so many rejections. Like you lose people, sometimes, and it's like we learn by mistakes too. So it's of course unintentional. Sometimes we don't even know that we're like driving people away, and all the rejections that we go through in order to just like because we were sharing from the heart. Like I had this discussion with my sister the other day when we're just messaging each other, and she says like something about that sharing, and I said, I used to also be so afraid, and I still have that, but I still used to be so afraid of sharing, like selling and things like that. But then
Mm-hmm.
now I realize that, like, when we go to restaurants, like when I have something that I really love to eat, and it's like I want to like buy it for everyone. I want to share it with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I have the hiking place that I love, or a vacation place. Like I take my parents, I take friends, family, my sisters, like everyone, my friends, and
Mm-hmm.
so like I just want to share it with everyone. And it's the same thing. Like I think when we have that shift of mindset, when we have something that we come across, it's like, wow, I at this time I'm not really like sure if it's completely right, but can you take a look at it? Maybe we can even have a discussion, and you give me a perspective, like this is what I think, that this is good or this is not good. And sometimes like we grow that way, and so we discover new things that way, and we get to like enjoy like sometimes better things together that way, or
Sure.
experiences together that way. It could be travel, it could be like hair product, it can be like I'm so grateful that I was able to, at this like going online, because you have a lot of people sharing stuff with you, like discover
Mm-hmm.
things like that could help my wrinkles and things like that. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm grateful for that people share with me. So when I discover something, like it might be for you, it might not be for you. Like, here's what I know at this moment. Let
Sure.
me know what you think. So that's the one thing, is like just being able to also come from a different perspective, that you really just want to share what you know best at this point.
Sure.
It's a different perspective too, right? Like we don't really like know everything, and it's a different angle of looking at things. Like I saw this image today on LinkedIn by Scott. I can't pronounce his last name now, but it was like this image of like two perspectives. One is a square and one's a rectangle. In the middle, it's like a little cylindrical like object. And so you see like the two views. It's like both of them are right from their angle that they're looking at it, but
Mm-hmm.
the actual item, it was actually three-dimensional. And so we
Right.
could both be right on our perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but if we kind of also have an open mind, and like kind of shift and see things from both sides, there's also good and bad, and seeing things like I just love that image, that
Sure.
but we rarely don't know what we don't know. Right? So
Yeah.
that's
I
why I
mean,
love to be online and growing with others, because I get to learn. And like when we go places, when we eat restaurants, if I'm open to saying, oh, I want to, like, can you choose a restaurant instead of me, then I get to try something different, and that's how
mm-hmm.
we grow.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the thing I remember hearing a guy say at one time that there's, in an argument, there's three sides to every story.
Mhm.
There's your side, there's the other man's side, and then there's, the truth, which is somewhere in the middle. And it's just like the image that you were talking about, having three different perspectives. One it's this, another one it's that, and then in reality it was something completely different. But both of them could have been something that it was actually accurate for how they actually saw it.
Yes, yes, yes. It's accurate for their view and what they know at that point, what we
Mm-hmm.
know at that point. And but there could be so much more, right? Richer. Like there's this
Mm-hmm.
three-dimensional object, and
Sure.
it's like it's so much more than just maybe two-dimensional. But they're both right
Mm-hmm.
at this point in our life.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
I remember a time with one of my roommates. I was still in remodel construction. I had my company going, and my roommate, she wanted to go in and buy a house and do a complete remodel and rewire. I mean, literally everything. So I got the opportunity to completely transfer all of my all of the skills that I had up into that point in my life, which was, either new construction or remodel construction, custom cabinetry, interior trim, hardwood flooring, all that stuff. And she's like, "Do you want to do it?" And I'm like, I remember telling her before we got started, I was like, you know, this is going to be a lot of work, number one. And she's like, "I'm down. I'm there for the whole project." And I said, "There's this thing, that thing, and that thing you're really not going to want to do." And she goes, "No, no, no. I want to do it all. I want to learn how to do it all." And it was funny because, we both just took action. We, got in there, we rewired the house. I did custom trim for the baseboards and the doors. And we put double doors going out to the backyard, built a deck on there, built a studio kind of apartment office space in the backyard, and redid the exterior, redid the hardwood floors that was under like 3 or 4 layers of carpeting. And by the time we got done and finished the whole project and got it onto the market and sold it, she pulled me aside and she goes, "You're right. I never want to do that, and that you told me before we started." But I've always been attracted to people that just, they take action, they do stuff, that's meaningful to them, and that's what this life is all about, taking action on the meaningful things when it's possible, and when those things involve other people and helping them move past certain limitations and helping them grow. Those are the things that I've more often than not said yes to, that have really made all the difference.
I,
So
I, I love your experience of that house, and then what we like just co-create and we do by hand, and then you just know, like, whether you like it or you don't like it, but you
hmm
still grew from it.
hmm
Like, no matter what the experience is, if we can just see it as a growing experience, and then we come out of it, wow, like we actually did it, right? Or
yeah.
we even if we didn't like get to finish, it's like there is still an inch ahead. So,
hmm
and we learn from each other, and I love that. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, go ahead.
The other thing is I also always want to give credit to my mentors, because there's been
hmm
so many mentors on this online journey that I never would have imagined,
hmm
that I would come across, and being able to learn from and being able to be in their community. Like, I was only able to connect with you through our mentor, and I'm
hmm
so grateful. And Joe Bauer, and he
hmm
is one of our mentors. There we have other mentors, and I think that there's just like something about shortening our path of growing when
hmm
we're open to learning from more experts who have been able to go through that. And like, you shortened my funnel building experience.
hmm
I thought, like, I'll never be able to do this. It's like that, the word never, but it's like that's the idea. Is like, I'll have to spend 1,000 hours in order to do this. And you were just able to come in, like, within the hour, teach me at least the foundations, and made it so easy. I know, like, it took you a lot of hours to transfer those skills to me. And I
Yeah.
still have a lot of questions, but I felt happy. I was like, wow, like, it's possible. You made them possible. And that's what the mentors do for us. And so also
Sure.
want to share that that's one of the things of saying yes, and also working with the right people that you connect with, the right mentors who can shorten your path for you.
Yeah. I know. I remember the my first mentor when I got sober was a little man named Art, and he was also a carpenter, and he had been in World War II, and and I think he'd been sober like 20 something years at that time, and he would take us to a little treatment facility, and it was a speaker meeting, so we would take a meeting in there, and foolish me, I asked one time, I was like, well, who's speaking, and he's like, you are. And and I remember just speaking for like 45 minutes about how crazy my life had been, and I had only been sober, maybe a couple of months at that time. And then I spoke for about 5 minutes of how my life had changed, because I embraced a more principled way of living. And it was just that opportunity for me to get a glimpse, to get the awareness, to start building that compassion for myself. But also, what was important about that was that I could see that it was empowering others, because even though I probably didn't have any value for anyone who'd been, doing it for a year or two, and then maybe I'm wrong, but there was value for those who couldn't imagine going, you know, 3 hours, much less 3 days, without drinking and using. You know what I mean? And so it's that process of empowering others. That has been kind of like a byproduct of just taking action, not thinking about it, saying yes, doing it anyway, moving beyond the fears. And so if you have anything about, kind of taking the action and moving beyond the fears, like if you could just touch on that for a little bit, I think that would be fantastic.
I think that like sometimes we let our fears paralyze us, and I still have those moments. And the community is so helpful because sometimes like you get inspired just by watching someone's live, or someone messages you saying like inviting you to do something like this, or sometimes like we have these moments where I think that we feel like it's so we are so down, like we have all this pain that we've gone through, and it's so hard to like even say yes to something. And but those that could be our biggest blessing, if when
Hmm.
we are able to have that, build the community, just say yes sometimes to just someone's like trying to reach out to you, trying to help you, or being open to like listening to someone's training, or someone's Facebook Live, or a message that inspires you, and then we give back. And that's the thing, is this cycle of give and take. I think it's like this whole like natural cycle of life, where
Hmm.
we are able to like be open to receiving that help, which all my life it was so hard, like being the oldest. I was like being trying to figure everything out myself, like
Hmm.
the math major who like would spend days and days and days to try work on one problem, you know. And there's good in that too, but it was just like I had such a hard time being an introvert, being shy to ask for help for anything. And so like just know that sometimes like whatever path uh and whatever it seems like life happens, and all the things I know you and I do, being caregivers, like there's just so many things that happen. Sometimes it really seems like it could paralyze us, but in the end, like you're sharing that self-love, like love ourselves enough to say, okay, maybe I can use some help. Maybe I should say yes to this, to showing up. Maybe
Hmm.
I can just like use my pain and say, um, because I'm going through this, how am I going to help someone else out? Like, how am I going to be able to, like, if someone like my son, or someone that I really truly love, were in the place that I am, like how do I help them? So that's like thinking about
Hmm.
like how we can, like, I would not want them to just lay in bed, right? So I
Hmm.
don't want to do that for myself, because we also show up for others by showing
Hmm.
up, just by showing up. And there's so many other people like lives that we can potentially save. I know you impact so many lives, and I'm very inspired by your journey, because when you share your story, there's so much I can't even believe, like, for a human being. And being able to use that to help like the people who are you said you shared in like going into prisons and into places where you speak for others. And like,
Hmm.
I think that is why sometimes we go through what we go through, so that we can
Hmm.
gain that strength for someone else.
Sure, sure. And the importance of that is that fear, and the problem is self-centered fear. It's like, I don't really want to do that. I don't know if I've got all of the right things, or what if I say something wrong or whatever. But someone could literally be dying to hear your story. And that's anybody. It's not just someone who's been through the ringer, which mine was mostly self-imposed. um, but overcoming that stuff, there's a tendency to think, oh, well, there's people like me, and then there's everybody else. Well, no, there's all of us. You know, we're all human. We all have, basically have the same needs. We want to be comfortable. We want to be um, productive. We want to be loved. We want to be, all of that stuff. And everyone's story matters. Everyone's story is impactful to the people who haven't heard it. And a lot of times, it could make all the difference. Someone could literally be dying to hear your story.
Yeah.
So tell me anything else you want to say about being an introvert and just getting out there and doing it anyway for our audience, because there's a lot of people who haven't taken that step and haven't gotten and putting themselves out there.
So I also connected with one of my other girlfriends I really admire. She's in the like mental health space and energy space, and she shared that she was an introvert too, and I couldn't believe it because, like, how could these people be introverts? Seeing where they're at right now, and
Mhm.
so we just by saying yes, just like overcoming our fears of just being able to be open a little bit to new experiences.
Mhm.
And that's the one thing, is being open to just like, um, the idea of we don't know what we don't know. So by saying
Mhm.
yes, we can possibly like grow a little bit beyond that. So not
Mhm.
that we won't be introverts anymore, because I still have that side. But like, as she shared also, she's like considers herself an extrovert and introvert now. So
Mhm.
I also feel that too. Like, there's like times where I just love friends. I love a lot of big people, a group of people. Sometimes like it's kind of fun being able to be a speaker,
Mhm.
to, to be able to like be in front of an audience and like impact lives. And because we show up like thinking about like the possibility of just not it's not just about us, that it could be potentially an impact for so many others. So that's
Mhm.
your why. Like, the why is it that we do it is, I think they say, more important than how sometimes. Like, so like,
Mhm.
why is it that we want to show up? We can show up imperfectly. Don't worry about being perfect. We all know, like, you saw me speak in Vegas. Like, I was
Mhm.
like trembling and
Mhm.
but it was a great experience to go through. And somehow also there were some people who came up after that who shared that they were inspired by it, and that made a difference in my life because they were so encouraging to me too. So like, it's all this thing, like, encourage others, and it's nice to be able to get some encouragement sometimes, and that's how we keep going. And so, does that
Sure.
answer? I know I was going around.
Sure. No, no, that's fine. Like I said, this life is not about being perfect, and it's not about having it all together, and it's not about any of those things. It's just about the experiences that
Yeah,
can make all the difference. When we show up for friends, family, and for that stranger on the street, who may just need to hear um, a kind word instead of another punch, while they're down. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it's very, very important for me to um, keep perspective. You know what I mean? When it comes to the importance of other people and family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I always do my best to be present and really try to listen to what people have to say, because a lot of times there's that golden nugget that really helps you, maybe not in that moment, but 2 or 3 weeks later or a month later, when something really challenging comes up, you remember that story and it helps you move forward.
It's true.
um, so
It's
is there
so true.
anything else you would like to say before we wrap up?
I think in this world, the word that just came, I think, as a download is compassion. Somehow that
Hmm.
word just like popped up in my mind when
Hmm.
I'm chatting with you. This word comes up a lot. I think when I chat with you, it's
Hmm.
this compassion that I feel that we can give to ourselves and to give to others, because there's just so much that sometimes someone goes through that you just never even know. And
Hmm.
by also you experiencing all this, sometimes it helps build that compassion. And so also always remember to be compassionate for yourself, which I keep working on. That I'm still
Hmm.
like I'm still a work in progress, at
Hmm.
all times. And so that's just the word that was like, I don't know, it just came to me.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
something,
And
yeah.
I think that that's so important, because that self-love could become self-hate real quick. But the compassion, and if you work on that compassion, maybe it's just a little thing here and there. Maybe it's skipping that one thing that isn't so good for you, you know, a little more often, and then next thing you have the results that you're looking for. So how do people get in touch with you?
So I have an Introverts Grow, Glow, and Thrive online Facebook group that I support. You can also find me at Glow, GLOW, with J. JAE is my name right here. It's actually my nickname, short. So glow with J at gmail.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on session number 2. Like I actually have a logo and I have all that fancy stuff, but with everything going on with my mom and trying to be available and present to help her out the best I can, I just haven't got all of that together. But this is what this is all about: is taking action.
Thank you for
And it
having
and it
me
and
here.
it and it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, I love that. It's like when you asked me to do this and I said, how do I prepare for this? You said, let's just have a conversation. And that's what I love about this. It's like we could just use our experience and just have this like share our story, share our experiences, and just being able to like work together this way. And somehow if we can impact like just one life, that would be like the purpose served. I also
Fantastic.
want to make sure that I share with your audience my free gift. So for anyone who does email me, flowwithj@gmail.com, I will be happy to share my top 10 engagement posts that, I had to kind of like, uh, s- like just learn like what was working and what was not. So I'm happy to share that with your audience.
Awesome. Thank you
Mhm.
so much. Well, for anyone, I see one person did a little heart there, and it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing this. And you know, and you go back to the mentors. He says, don't let your history be a mystery. Because there could be literally someone dying to hear your story. So thanks.
Thank you.